sheet there?
Yeah, I brought my little cue sheet so we can kind of recall where the crap we went, because we went a long ways. Oh, by the way, everyone, welcome back to the 307 podcast, the premier ultra running podcast, where sometimes we talk about government, sometimes we talk about our faith. Very rarely we talk about ultra running, and even more rarely than that, we talk about mountain biking. And today is a mountain biking episode. Well, I guess you could call it. I don't even know if you could call it mountain biking. It's the recap of mine and James's experience on the TNGA, which stands for Trans North Georgia. I would say it has achieved legendary status, this race.
Yeah, I went into a bike shop yesterday because my bike is in need of some repairs now, and it was like I was a celebrity because I had just completed TNGA.
Yeah,
It's a pretty epic, legendary ride.
yeah, you get some cred in the mountain bike world, I guess, if you complete TNGA, which makes sense because, I guess traditionally only about 50% of the people that start actually finish. I mean, that's the information we gathered, right?
Yeah, and I think for a rookie, which we were, this is our first attempt, the dropout rate's even higher.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Now, just to give you a little context on this event that we're talking about, I don't actually know who designed the route originally. Justin Shealy knows, but I don't know the history of it. It always amazes me, these long bike packing, I guess you should call it, these long races. It always amazes me, like it would take years to design that route. Like somebody put in years and years of work to link up all of these wilderness areas and national forests and trails and fire roads, and they've basically created a route that links up the wilderness across that spans North Georgia. You start on the South Carolina-Georgia line and you finish on the Georgia-Alabama line, and there's very little paved sections in there. There are a couple little parts where you do get on the roads to kind of link up some national forest or wilderness area, whatever. But overall, it's, the vast majority of it is going through on trail and gravel fire road and stuff like that. So this thing would have had to have taken years for somebody to create. I mean, that's always a cool part of these races to me,
So I'm reading off of some bike packing website right here. It says the TNGA is a result of 5 years worth of scouting and planning efforts by David Muse. So David, thank you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, so I could go out here and just right here around the house, and I could come up with a couple different 50-mile, foot race routes or even 100-mile routes, but a 370-mile route that traverses an entire state, I mean, that's pretty cool, I thought. And so, yeah, it's about 370 miles. It's got about 40,000 feet of climbing, and the nature of this race is another cool part. I guess we'll go in now because most of our listeners are, I would say, predominantly runners. Mm-hmm. So we'll go in right now to talk about a little bit what's the differences between this and a running race. And I would say the first big difference is the fact that the TNGA is completely self-supported. So in a running race, you have aid stations that are placed strategically by the race director every 10 or 20 miles, whatever it may be. And you also have a crew, usually at a running race. You have the option, at least, to have a crew. So you have this team of people around you that can help you resupply, make sure you have the things that you need. They can, clean your feet up for you. They can meet you at certain intervals with, different gear items that you might need. They're kind of taking care of you. That's all laid out for you. Whereas this type of event is you actually cannot have anyone meet you and help you for any reason. So if your dang bike breaks out on the course and you call someone, or you have someone that you even just meet on the side of the road, call someone. But if you make arrangements for anyone to bring you anything at any time, you are scratched from the race. So if your bike breaks out there on the course, you've got to push your broken bike to the nearest bike shop, which may be 100 miles from where you are, from where your bike breaks at. And in terms of like food and things like that, you've got to ride to the next gas station and hope it's open. That's the way it works. So that to me is a tremendous difference. It's something that adds a whole nother level of challenge or a whole nother element to TNGA versus a long ultra marathon.
Yeah, I think the other thing I think about that's different too, you mentioned the bike, right? So you've got this piece of equipment that is prone to break down, especially over really, really difficult, hard terrain. Mm-hmm. So you've got to manage that. But the other piece of it is just your inability, especially going downhill, to just kind of mentally check out. Where, I've run an ultra before where it gets dark and you kind of get in that flow state and you're moving and mentally you're kind of checked out a bit. You still got to pay attention to the trail, watch where your feet are going. But if you fall, you're going to bang up your knee, you're going to get back up, you're going to keep going. Man, so we were moving at a high rate of speed down really technical single track trail. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, having been in the saddle for over 12 hours, 14 hours, whatever it was. And you have to be on. You can't let your mind wander or you'll wrap yourself around a tree.
Yeah. I hit 46 miles per hour one time coming down a hill. I mean, that's for me, that on a mountain bike, and my mountain bike particularly probably weighed about 80 pounds with the water in it. So that's fast on a rig like that. And so, yeah, I think you're hitting on not only the mental aspect of it, but I think the other big difference is the consequences are way higher at this event, TNGA. Like you said, James, in a running race, if you make a mistake, you're going to fall. You might break a wrist. You might twist an ankle. You might get scratched up. But on this event, the consequences are really, really high if you screw up on some of these sections. I mean, literally death, or multiple broken bones, which there was a person out on the course on this particular year that suffered multiple broken bones. And I want to read this comment real quick, because in the podcast just last week, I made a statement that this race is not for the faint of heart. Like it is not. This race is not for the inexperienced person. This race is not for the person who, has a mountain bike and likes to ride, 1 day a week and maybe has been riding for a couple of years and is just kind of a weekend warrior. This is not that. And it has nothing to, in my opinion, nothing to do with the difficulty. It has everything to do, though, with the skill that has to be applied to this. And here's a comment that I got. This guy right here, Alex Johnson, said, I just got back from TNGA. Also, unfortunately, I got taken out early due to a serious accident. Chad was not exaggerating at all when he says this course is not for everyone, even extremely fit bikers. If you dream of doing TNGA, please listen to him when he says that this is a more technical mountain bike route than most of the literature and videos would lead you to believe. The route is publicly available. I would advise anyone to ride the entire route, if not 2/3 of it at a minimum, 6 months before you decide to do it. Riding this route with a rigid fork is too dangerous for anyone but an experienced mountain biker. Same with using drop bars. Not advisable unless you have years of mountain bike experience. And so this guy's just backing up when I'm trying to tell people, if you're listening to this podcast and you think, oh, I like to ride bicycles, I'm going to go do this thing. You just can't. This is not something that you just can go and just do, because you have to have the skill on the bike applied. And then you also have to pair the bike skill with endurance experience, how to eat, how to drink, how to take care of yourself, both from a nutrition standpoint and from a medical standpoint. Because it's super remote and it's long. You also have the backpacking and wilderness skills that have to be applied in this. So you have so much more going on, and the consequences are so much higher here than they would be at an ultra marathon. You know, and I was glad that guy left that comment, because we had a guy on when we briefly talked about TNGA live on YouTube, and you know, there was some guy said, why did it take you so long, Chad? And I said, well, I'll bet you $1,000. You go and do it next year. I'll bet you $1,000 you won't finish in less than 10 days. Yeah. And I probably shouldn't have made that bet to him because, like, this dude's never mountain biked before. He started messaging Sheely, like, right after the podcast, really? Asking about what mountain bike he should get. He's never rode on a mountain bike. It's like, dude, you're going to freaking kill yourself out here, man. So that's a huge difference between the two.
Yeah, it really is. And there are courses out there, whether running, bike packing, whatever, that are designed for a pleasant experience, that are designed for beauty, that are designed for specific things, right? And this one, like, it's beautiful. I mean, we saw some incredible stuff that we'll talk about, but this is not a course that's designed to be pleasurable. This is a course that's designed to see just how much you can take and keep going, because the trail, we'll get into all the details of it, but it is just a brutal course.
It is. That's exactly the way it's designed. I mean, it does have its own unique beauty, without a doubt, but you have to be the right type of person to see the beauty in this race, because there are no grand vistas. There are no, crap like you're going to see out west. Like, you hike to the top of a mountain and, it's just, you're in this, beautiful view and all. None of that crap, man, on this race. It's got its own unique beauty, though, in the green tunnel of the trail systems through Georgia here. But I learned, early on in the race, I specifically was all the terrain and trails that we covered were totally new to me. So, I didn't know if there was an alternate route. I didn't know about it. I was just riding the route that we, had laid out on GPS. And later on in the race, we got on trails that I was very familiar with. And so we would come to intersections where I would say, okay, we know where we're going. There's an easy way to get there, and there's a really hard way to get there. It's going to be interesting to see which route they chose for us to take. And it was always
100% of the time
the harder route. It was never the easier route. It was always the harder route. And I guarantee you, at 90% of the intersections that we came to, there was an easier, more scenic, more enjoyable way to get to where we needed to go versus the route that we took to get to where we needed to go.
Yep.
Every single time it was genius, man. And so this leads me to another component that's different about this to ultra running is the navigation aspect. In ultra running races, maybe even shorter mountain bike races, I don't know, but I've never done a short mountain bike race. But in ultra running races, the course is marked. So there's some sort of flagging or flags in the ground or something. And, every quarter mile or so, you get a ribbon and you're still on course. Every intersection is kind of marked out. Well, with this TNGA, there is no course marking, period. Not a single one. You have to figure out how to get to where you even start the dang thing at. And you're navigating every single turn, every single trail, everything off of a GPX file. And also you have a cue sheet that's basically a written turn-by-turn directions that you can reference. And you could navigate purely off of that cue sheet. If your GPS went down, it would just be a lot slower. Yeah. But there's just another mental component layered onto this that you don't have in ultra running. I think that's another reason, like you said, it goes back to in a lot of ultra races you can kind of turn off because you're just glancing for the flags. Whereas this, you're having to watch the GPS, you're having to watch the terrain, you're having to make sure you don't miss a turn. Because if you do miss a turn, which we missed some turns, again, the cost is high, man.
Because nothing's flat. So you miss a turn, you either burn calories going uphill. Well, you're going to burn calories going uphill either way, whether it's on the way back to the trail or when you pass your turn.
Yep. So navigational aspect is another huge difference. I would say the similarities are I guess one more difference, a good difference that makes it not as difficult in a certain way to ultra running is the bike doesn't beat your body up as bad as a long run. So coming out the other end of this, we've been now done for 3 days. Mm-hmm. I haven't been working out. I definitely know I did something, but it's nothing like after I finished Cocodona where my freaking back seized up. I could barely walk. Everything hurt. My body was all dysregulated. It took me a month to recover from it. With this, I came out of it. I'm relatively okay, other than a little fatigue and soreness. So I really like that it doesn't really beat you up physically unless you wreck your bike out, obviously. But as long as you take care of yourself, it's not really killing your joints. Similarities, I would say the basics of nutrition, hydration, the basics of staying patient, present, being deliberate, all the same kind of foundational elements of any endurance event. I'd say it's very closely relatable to the TNGA.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned several times out there that I just so agree with as well is that principle of constant forward motion.
Yeah.
Right? Like running an ultra or any endurance event is constant forward motion. If we're pushing the bike, okay, we're pushing, but we're moving. We're moving forward. We're taking slow ground, even if it's slow. Yep. And I think that was just something that is similar in any major endurance feat.
Mm-hmm. I always knew that was important, but I think I told you out on the course, the ROP course that we do here at 3-7 Project, the Rite of Passage, it's really just proven to me over and over again how much ground you can cover if you just simply keep moving, even at a slow pace. If you just keep moving, man, you can cover a lot of ground in a 24-hour time span. So I've always known that's true, but the ROP course really solidified that in my mind. And I think so there was a point during the race, and we'll go through this kind of day by day here in just a second, but I want to hit this kind of highlight because this was a real conflict I was having in my mind during the race early on. I think it might have been day 1 or maybe day 2. We weren't covering as much ground as I thought we were going to be able to cover in a day. Because, I mean, we went out on some long training rides, you know, and you can get out here and cover 50, 60 miles in a half a day.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, you think you're out here racing and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to cover 100, 120 miles a day because I'm going to go all day. And we just weren't hitting that, man. We just weren't hitting it. And the big reason was because the terrain was so much different. But I started thinking, what the crap? Like, we've got to do something here because we're not racing. But because we weren't racing because at least I'll speak for myself, I knew I couldn't win this thing. Like, I'm just not experienced enough. Just period. I mean, maybe one day I'll race this thing, you know, in a year or two if I really want to train specifically for it. But this year wasn't the year. We were out there to learn, but we still wanted to finish as fast as we could possibly finish with the skills and the knowledge and the ability that we had out there while we were doing it. And I kept thinking, what the crap, man? We got to do better than this. We just rode for 14 hours and we only covered 75, 78 miles, something like that. Like, we got to do better than this. And, you know, that's when I had a conversation with you, James, like, all right, the only thing that I know that we can do is every time that we stop, we've got to be really deliberate about our time and we got to get back moving as soon as possible. And we did end up cleaning that up. Yeah. And I think that helped us hit a little higher mileage every single day. But that's going back to that concept of constant forward motion. And then also, toward the end of the race, I started thinking about, you know what? If I could just learn to eat and drink and do everything that I needed to do on the bike while I was going, even if I had to slow down, but I was still moving, that would be a complete game changer. Yeah. I really think it would be.
Yeah, I do too. And I think there are places on that course, certainly where that's possible. And then there's places on that course where that's just not possible because of the terrain.
I wanted to look at, you sent me the stop time that the race winner had.
It was,
where's that at?
It was, I pulled it right off of the tracker site.
Abe. So the guy that won the race, Abe won the race. He had less than 70 minutes of stopped time. He finished in 39 hours. So over the course of 39 hours, he was being still for less than 70 minutes. So an hour and 10 minutes.
Unbelievable.
So everything that dude did, he did it off his bike.
On his bike.
Oh, yeah, he did it on his bike while he was riding. Like, that hour and 10 minutes was probably like taking a dump, like
refilling water.
Yeah, right. Something that absolutely had to get him off the bike.
Yep.
And I think that would be the absolute necessity, is learning how to do everything you needed to do while you were riding to actually be competitive here.
Yeah. And that was, I went and looked, I went and did a little study on it yesterday, just the other top competitors. And that was the big difference. Like, he was certainly fast and faster, but the big thing that separated him from the rest of those top 5, top 10 finishers was he had way less stop time.
Yep.
His moving time was, always. He was just always moving.
Yeah. That was crazy to watch that dude when he flew by us. So, yeah, let's get into this thing, man. James and I decided to start the race a day early. Now, this is a unique component or a unique option that you can opt for on TNGA or most of these long mountain bike rides, because, like we said, the route's laid out, but there's nobody along the route to make sure, you know, you're hitting your spots. And so every rider is required to have a tracking device on them. And that tracking device, it pings your location to a program called Track Leaders. And this program is monitored by the race director. So you're being monitored the whole time, making sure you're staying on route, making sure you're not getting in a truck and, all of a sudden your thing's pinging 40 miles per hour going up a hill. So that's where the accountability comes from. So you're allowed to start a day early if you need to because of your scheduling or whatever's going on in your life, because you have that accountability of that tracker. Now, if you opted to start a month early, you can't really count that because you're going to have totally different weather, totally different environmental conditions than the people who start on the Grand Depart, which is the official date and time of the race. But starting a day or two early, you're experiencing the same types of conditions as everybody in the Grand Depart. I had a dang speaking engagement booked for Thursday. The race was supposed to start Saturday. So I didn't know if I could get back home. If I started Saturday, I didn't know if I could get back home in time to fulfill my obligation for the speaking engagement. Or maybe if I did get back home in time, I was going to be so dead tired that I was just going to do a terrible job. So we both agreed to start Friday around midday. 10:30 is when we started. And drove out to the little bridge there on the South Carolina-Georgia line. And right off the bat, old James started having troubles.
What kind of?
I just made the video log for the YouTube channel today, and the first few videos are you standing there with your phone, trying to get the route uploaded to your GPS there,
which was a waste of time. It ended up being because that GPS unit didn't last long.
And we got going finally at about 11 o'clock, and the beginning stages of every time you go out and do an adventure like this, the beginning stages to me are always kind of a little odd because like you're not in it. I always feel out of place. Like I'm fresh, I'm going, I'm like, well, this doesn't really feel hard. You're still all clean and your clothes are clean and you've got all the best food. And it takes me a while to get in it. Like, okay, now I know what I'm doing, Yeah.
I think for me, that first day was all about figuring out kind of the rhythm. I mean, it was there was that first, 30 miles or so of that first day it's challenging. There's a lot of elevation gain and loss. And, but like you said, you're fresh, you feel good.
Yeah.
But it's figuring out that rhythm which took me a while to figure out, of when to eat, how much to eat, when to drink, how much to drink.
Pace.
Yeah. So that we're not going out too hard. We're not charging a hill too hard. Because we got 10 more after that one. Just beginning to really settle in and figure out those rhythms.
Which a few of them we did charge too hard for sure.
Yeah.
And I thought about that too. I remember a few of those steep hills in that first day, and we would ride up them.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, we won't be riding up hills like this
by day 3.
Yeah, by day 3. Yep. I remember that. And so that's another part for me on day 1. I'm anticipating, when is this going to get hard? Mm-hmm. You want it to be hard right off the bat, but it's just not.
Yep.
And so you're just waiting. You're waiting. Okay, when is this? Yeah, okay, that's a pretty hard terrain. That wasn't that bad, and you're waiting for it. And it ain't going to come in the first day. I mean, unless you're just totally inexperienced and fat and out of shape, it's not going to get hard the first day.
Yeah. It really didn't.
It was beautiful. did pass through some of the most beautiful part of the state, I thought. You remember those hay fields and,
Yep.
Just old country kind of, we had a couple little road sections that was just beautiful, man.
Yeah, that northeast Georgia, kind of north of Clayton, that whole area up in there, that's where we were. And man, it's just beautiful up there.
So I remember getting to that hiker hostel on the first day, like the evening.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yep.
We pulled up in there. You took you a big fat steamer.
Yep.
Down there in the
they had them a little porta-john out there for us.
And I remember the sun was setting it was kind of getting dusty dark when we pulled up into that hiker hostel. We refilled our water, and I remember thinking, daggone, man, it's already getting dark out here, and we've only covered 55 miles. And that was kind of the beginning of me thinking, this is not what I expected.
It's taking way longer.
It's taking way longer than I thought it would.
Especially because that first day, there were no long stops like built into the day, meaning we didn't pass any grocery stores. There was no need to resupply. We didn't need to go in anywhere and have lunch. Like we were out on the trail all day.
All day, yeah. We didn't stop in Dillard,
right,
which was the one town that we passed through. Yeah, so we were going all day long. Hiker hostel, refilled our water, and took off again. And on my cue card, I have all these things that we didn't hit any of them. Food south, Lakeside, gas station north at 77 miles. I never saw no gas station at 77 miles. I don't know. I guess all this is just stuff that's off course.
It must be off course.
Yeah. And so we leave the hiker hostel, get back on the trail. And when did we decide to try to make it to that church? Because I think we were talking about maybe pulling off before that, right?
Yeah, I remember it. I remember it got dark on us. My light wasn't working.
Yep.
I mean, from the get-go, my light stopped working well.
Handlebar mounted light.
The handlebar mounted light. So I was trying to ride with that headlamp, and I'm trying to remember. I don't remember what led us to say let's try to push to this church. But that's what we ended up doing.
And I also remember once we decided we were going to try to push to the church, which was at mile 78, I also remember like both of us, because we popped out on a little bit of road there, and we were like, where's this freaking church at?
Yeah.
Like, where's this church at? Yeah. Like, we came to a few intersections. I remember you saying, that looks like a good place for a church to be. And it wasn't there. And it just wasn't
Ride
there.
Some more and it still wasn't there.
You just keep riding. And then finally, we get to an intersection where we have to take a left. Well, the church still isn't there, but we kind of see some lights up ahead of us, maybe a half mile off course. And I think I had also pulled it up on my cell phone. And I was like, that's got to be it. And so we actually rode about a half mile past our turn off course. And there's this little country church.
Mount Zion Baptist Church.
Yep, right there. And they've got a little pavilion, where they do their arts and crafts and whatever. And we pull up in there, and it's right on the edge of an old cemetery. I don't remember what time it was. It was late.
It was late. It was after midnight, I think.
Yeah, it was late. And that's where we decided to bed down for the night.
Yep. We had that gourmet dinner that night.
Holy
you
crap,
remember that,
man. Okay. Yeah. So that's another thing. My bike was already so heavy, man. I didn't bring a stove. I didn't bring dehydrated meals. I didn't bring anything that was worthy of like a good hot dinner. I just assumed surely there would be enough places that we would pass on route that at least we could get some like gas station pizza or something like that for dinner. Nothing. That first 78 miles, nothing on route.
We didn't. I don't know. Yeah, we didn't see anything.
So we bivvied up under that pavilion, and I think I had a can of sardines and some Ritz crackers. That's what I ate for dinner, and you ate a dang Pop-Tart.
All I
didn't you?
had was a Pop-Tart to eat. That was my dinner.
I mean,
After
that's
riding for
rough, son.
13 hours, terrible terrain, cramming a Pop-Tart in your mouth.
Been eating sugary snacks and hiking snacks and crap all day long.
That was rough.
And you got to end the day with a Pop-Tart.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty rough, man.
I was hungry come that next day.
I remember sleeping pretty good under that pavilion, though.
It was cool that night. It actually cool. That was really the only night it actually cooled down.
Which that plays into our story later on because we did. It got down to like 57 degrees that night or something is what I heard, and actually got chilly.
Yep.
Now, I didn't bring a sleeping bag. I didn't bring anything like that. Neither did you, James. We just had, some base layers that we could throw on. And James had a piece of Tyvek that he could just roll up in. And I had an actual bivy sack, but didn't end up providing any sort of warmth at all. And so I remember waking up a few times early in the morning, those early morning, 4 or 5 a.m., and being slap freaking cold, man.
Yep.
The sun came up and the church folk started rolling in, son.
Started coming to tend to the cemetery.
Yep. That was their reaction to us being there, though, was actually pretty cool.
It was cool. We had made ourselves at home, especially me. I tend to travel on something like this, whether it's backpacking or bike packing. I tend to travel light, but when I get somewhere, I like to spread all my stuff out. So I know I can just look around, see where everything is. So I had a little gypsy camp set up underneath the pavilion there, and old boy and his wife come pulling in right about sunrise and comes pulling right up to us. I thought, oh man, we're about to get run out of here. You boys sleep all right? Yes, sir. If you're going to be around tomorrow, come join us for church.
Yeah. That was awesome, man.
It was awesome. They invited us to church. He didn't know if we were vagrants, homeless, bums, criminals. He didn't care.
I really liked that show of just Christian, the body of Christ, brotherhood. Like, hey, we don't care. You look like a bum. You're actually on this property and you have really no
Probably
right.
trespassing.
Yeah, you have no right to be here. But we're going to be cool with it, right?
Yep.
That was awesome. And then some more church folks pulled in. They let me go in and use their bathroom, and they were just really welcoming, seemed like loving people.
Yep.
And that really filled me up, man, because they could have said, "What? Get off of get out of here! Like, what do you can't be here." They could have very easily did that, and we would have packed our stuff up and left.
And we'd have been on our way.
Yeah. So we woke up that morning. First day, like we said, it wasn't never really got hard. Well, this coming up day 2, that's where we started to kind of get settled in and say, okay, this is going to be legit. And so I think it's a good time before we get into the hard part to talk about why you even decided to do this, man. Because, having a reason for doing something like this isn't really important until it does get hard.
Yeah.
And so before we talk about when it got hard, why did you stay out there and stick it out and stay through it?
I thought about that going into it, and then of course while we're out there, you start thinking about that a lot. And for me, it's 2 big things. One is I'm in my mid-40s now, and I'm very aware that I'm getting to the age to where when I stop doing something, thinking that I'm going to start back up at it again, specifically something physically that's really hard, that demands a level of fitness and muscular ability and things like that, if I stop and think that, well, I'll pick that back up when the kids are older, the reality of that happening is pretty slim. And if it does, I'm not going to be able to perform anywhere near the level that I can today. And so I'm very aware of that. I'm also, the reality is the last 2 years, I've signed up to do something really hard and I failed at it. I didn't finish to the degree that I wanted to. I didn't meet my expectations or my standards. And so I knew going in, like, I need this. I need to get out. I need to push myself. I need to do something really hard. And I need to, it needs to be completed regardless of what it takes from me physically. So that was a big reason. The other big reason is over the course of the last month and a half, my father-in-law, who I just love dearly, lives down the road from us in our neighborhood. He's been going through some real significant health struggles with brain cancer and lung cancer and a number of other things. And I've watched him fight his battle, and he's always been so supportive of me and everything that I do, all these crazy challenges and things. And so he was also part of the why. It's like, I know while I'm out there pushing and fighting against this trail, he's out there pushing and fighting against cancer, his body, this treatment. And his battle is so much harder than what I've got to do, right? Mine's got an end date. He doesn't know when his end date is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so just felt like it was kind of a thing to do for him as much as it was for me.
Mm-hmm. That's all good stuff, man. Yeah, not backing off and thinking that you can just pick something up, later on in life and jump right back. Like you're right, man. You can't make the decision just to kind of cruise.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as cruising through.
No.
Like there's no such thing as that. Like people don't understand this. If you're not pressing forward, you are going backwards.
Yep.
There are only two directions you can go, forward and backwards. In life, in fitness, in your faith, in your business, there's always the temptation to cruise, especially when you've already accomplished some things.
Yep.
When you've made some money, when you've done some hard physical challenges, when you have firmly grasped the gospel. There's always, this is the greatest temptation for us who have achieved certain things.
In my view on that, Chad, I so agree with that. And I also don't think you can be moving forward effectively in one area of your life and be moving backwards in the other areas, if that makes sense. At least for me, there is such a direct connection between how I'm pushing myself physically, spiritually, relationally with my family and my kids, professionally. And if I start letting off on one of those areas, it's not like, oh, that creates margin, so now I give more attention to my family, more attention. It doesn't work that way. When I start letting off physically, well, then my disciplines start slipping professionally, and I start backsliding spiritually. I'm not as disciplined to spend time in the Word. Then relationally, things fall off. It's like it doesn't. There's this myth or this idea that says, well, if I back off this, it'll create margin for these other things. That has not been my experience. My experience is I back off in one area, and every area suffers.
That's so true, man. I always wonder about you too, because you and your wife, Pop-Tart, they you guys both really are a shining example of how a family can operate. In my opinion, like I said, the way that you guys live as both as husband and wife and as father and mother, and as individuals, like it's very, very inspiring to me. And I always wonder too, like for you, because now your son and your daughter are of an age where they can understand the magnitude of something like TNGA. Like, wow, my dad's going to do this thing, man. That's, they can understand at least partially that, okay, this is legit. This is long. This is hard. This is not something that most normal people would ever do. Does showing them that, or at least being able to share that with them and just leading by example for them, like, is that a driver? Because I don't have kids. Like,
yeah, it's huge for me. I think one of the most one of the biggest areas of deficit in this upcoming generation is in the area of resilience. I think we are raising, as a culture, as a society, weak young men and young women that are not resilient, that don't recover quickly from challenges or pain, suffering, conflict, whatever. They just don't have resilience. And I am committed with everything I can do to raise children who are resilient, who will be young adults and adults that are resilient. And I only know one way to teach it, and that's to model it and to do it, and to do it with them and put them in difficult situations and walk with them through that. And so, like, it warmed my soul, man. Literally Wednesday, so we finished Tuesday. Wednesday, Cam comes back from school. We're having dinner together, and he says, "Hey, Daddy." I said, "Yeah, what's up, bud?" He says, I told my class today about your bike ride. And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, I think my teacher thought I was lying." I said, "Why do you think that?" "Because I told her it was over 370 miles, and she just kind of was like, 'Oh, really? Wow, that sounds nice.'" Like she did not believe him. And I'm like, I love that. Like, I love that my son has that story to tell about me.
Cool, yeah.
That's on the extreme side that people kind of roll their eyes at it. Because that sets a standard for him of what's possible.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. I mean, just that. So him seeing you and seeing you do these things and complete these things as a very young man, or even your daughter as a young woman, it's going to have to influence their decision-making process when they do become adults.
Yeah.
Like it's got to.
Yep.
It's got to impact the decisions they make in a good way.
Yeah.
Right? And not saying that they're going to be perfect and they're going to be just like you, but they've got that example from their mother and their father of, like, okay, this is the standard.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, and when if you were to sit down and talk to my kids about the things that they want to do, it would probably be different than a lot of other kids that you would talk to, because Mara wants to through hike the Appalachian Trail. That's one of her dreams. Mm-hmm. She's 12 years old, 12-year-old girl. How many 12-year-old girls even know what the Appalachian Trail is? Mm-hmm. That's one of her dreams, is to through hike the AT. Cam's already talking about someday how he and I maybe could do TNGA together.
Yeah, because he's got his mountain bike now.
Yep. So, like, it's planting those seeds, and whether we ever do that or not, the conversations and the mindset is developing in him at 9 years old that says, that's something worth doing. Mm-hmm. It's worth doing something that's hard and painful because of the growth that comes out of the other side of it.
I was thinking about that while we were out there. Actually, there was a moment where I was like, man, in probably less than 10 years away from being able to do this with your son.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's really cool. I kind of covet that, that's really cool.
You can come along with us.
Yeah, I guess I could tag along, but no, that's good stuff, man. I for me, in my why, I don't know, man. I'm at a weird place in my life when I ask myself, why do I keep doing these things? I'm just at a strange place because it's not to have more content. Like I have hundreds and hundreds of stories and videos and photos and everything, content wise to feed what I do for a living here at 307 Project. It's not to prove anything. Usually it's not to prove anything to myself. It's dang sure not to prove anything to anybody else. It's none of those things. I don't know. When I think about my why, there's a part of it that's like, well, it's just because it's there. It's like it's there. Somebody made this. Like somebody created this and they say it's really, really hard. So that's why I'm going to go do it, because it exists. I even think maybe that's been kind of a common thread throughout my life, even signing up to be a SEAL in the Navy.
Yeah.
It was like, why, if I think back and I'm totally honest with why I did that, it wasn't for service to my country. It wasn't for a career. It wasn't because I liked guns. It wasn't because I wanted to travel. It was just like, well, this thing is there and somebody said it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go do it. I don't know what draws me to that. Something incessantly draws me to these things that exist, but specifically the things that are touted as like the hardest things. Something draws me to them. I think another part for me, I do feel a responsibility as someone who God has given a platform to be able to speak on this podcast or through social media or whatever. I do feel a responsibility to practice the things that I preach continuously. Because like I said, I do believe that if you're not pressing forward, you are going backwards. So I think there's a part of that for me. It's like, if I stop, I'm disqualified to, and maybe that's not even true, but if I stop, I feel like I'm disqualified from doing things like this. And yeah, I could fake it, but I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't, I don't know how people live with themselves that are faking, that have platforms and they're faking, their entire persona.
Yeah.
So it feels good to be able to do things like this and just have the confidence that, like, I'm not faking it, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is for real, right? I think I also feel a responsibility toward, I said I don't have children, but the people who support 307 podcast, the people who listen to the podcast, the YouTube channel, this is a poor analogy, but I almost see this body of 307 Project as like, I hate to say my children, because they're not children. A lot of them have more life experience than I have, but it's this group of people that I have the opportunity to set an example for, or maybe show them what's possible for them. And so I feel that responsibility, and I think I achieve that through these things. A
couple thoughts on that, because I think I totally get what you're saying. I think on the first one you mentioned, just about it being naturally drawn to the extreme, to the hard, to the difficult. I think there's something innate within us that God wired within us as men towards that end. And so, and a lot of females too. It sometimes it looks different in the way it is. I mean, you think about young kids, right? My son, when he was 5-6 years old, he didn't dress up and play real estate agent. He dressed up and played Navy SEAL or Army guy, right? Like, because there's something about that adventure, about that even at that young age appeals to him and his soul and the way that God has wired him. I think our culture and our society has softened that and constrained that within young men. But I think it's in there. I think there's something, and you've lived the lifestyle where like that has been fed your whole life, and it's a hunger that you have that God uses to grow your influence and to grow your platform. I think that's awesome. The other thing that I noticed on this, I noticed it at Cocodona too, is you doing these things does inspire people. And there's clear evidence of that because we get to a trailhead and there's somebody who's there waiting on you. They've been tracking you on the track, and they're not there because they think you're this unbelievable thing and, oh, if I could only get Chad's autograph. They just want to tell you, hey, you've really inspired me. I've signed up to do this race because of what you're doing. Yeah. And it's more than a race to me because it has an impact on every area of my life. Like it's happening. Like people are seeing you engage in these difficult things, and push through and live out the principles and the standards that you teach. And it inspires. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's really cool. I mean, I never thought, and like, I hold that very dear. Like, I take that very seriously, man. Like, this stuff that I'm doing with my life, it's not a joke to me. Yeah. It's not something that I'm just doing for fun. It's not something that I'm doing to make people laugh or, it's not a joke to me, man. I mean, this is my life. Yeah. This is what I do professionally, So, it's amazing at the people that it has impacted, and that's pretty special. And that's a big part of my why, man, for sure.
I believe it. Not everybody, most people don't get the opportunity to spend the type of time with you that I do and do something like this with you. But I just for those listening, there's a real authenticity to what you're saying right now, to what Chad's saying right now. Of like, it's serious to him. We could have easily taken 6-7 days to do TNGA and still finished it and still been sitting here having a conversation and talking about how hard it was and how we pushed and making ourselves feel and look real good. But 2 days in, you pulled me aside and said, dude, we got to tighten this up. We're not pushing like we can push. Yeah. And we got to tighten up. I didn't feel that tension. Mm-hmm. You felt that tension. Mm-hmm. And I think a part of why you felt that tension is you feel that responsibility to say, well, if I'm going to be out here, I doggone well better be pushing, because that's what I communicate to other people they need to do. That's how I communicate growth comes. And if I'm not doing it, then I'm not being true to what I say. Yeah. And I just see that in you in a different way than most people.
Well, thank the Lord for that, because that's, to me, it comes, that part of me comes, I guess you could say, naturally. Like, I don't have to, I don't try for that. It's just, it's innate almost. So thank the Lord for that. And I think that's another thing I want to discuss on this is, it kind of ties into why, but kind of not. When I start something like this, like the TNGA, like the Cocodona, and when I start the TNGA with you, James, mm-hmm. It is just implied that we're going to finish. Mm-hmm. Like there is no out, period. Mm-hmm. And I felt that when we started this, because This was something that's brand new to me, and to you. It's something brand new, but like I go into this thing with, there is no out except through, barring a catastrophe, broken bones, destroyed bicycle, whatever. But we're going to salvage every possible resource that we can salvage and leverage it to get us across the finish line as quickly as possible. And I wanted to hit this, man, because I don't think people go into these events with that mindset. Not very many people. I think there are too many people that are going into these races, these hard challenges that they've decided to take upon themselves. They go into these things and they go into them with a bunch of little outs in the back of their mind, right? And when you go into these things with the mindset that I'm talking about, it's hard to process that almost. It's like, okay, I've got it. There is no out. I've got to do this, man. Look, you can't have a plan B going in, because you're going to take it. If you go into, look, if you're starting, if it comes down to the day for you to start an ultra marathon, a long bike race or something, and you know you have not trained properly, you're not prepared. You know you haven't tested your gear properly. You go into it and maybe you're sick, maybe you're dealing with an injury, all these things that will give you an out. All the things I just named.
Yep.
They're going to give you an out. It's better for you not to start, in my opinion. So if it gets to race day for you, listener, and you have all these things, now I'm not saying everything needs to be perfect leading up to race day, but if you know in your heart, I didn't put in the work I should have put in for this, or you know, I'm dealing with something back home, or I'm dealing with something physically, or it is better for you just to not start than for you to start and then take that out.
Yeah.
Because you will take it. Guaranteed. And what you end up doing is you develop the habit of starting something and not finishing it.
Yep.
That's why it's better just not to start. Would you agree with that?
I would. I heard somebody after, I can't remember if it was after Cocodona or before, and I wish I could give them credit. I don't remember who it was. It was on a podcast or something. I don't remember. But they said this. They said, if you go into something and you know in your heart you haven't trained and you haven't prepared for it, you'll find a reason to quit. That has been my experience.
Yeah.
That has been my personal experience. If I show up and I toe the line and I'm not confident that I've put in the work to earn my spot at this line, then it's way too easy to find a reason to quit along the way. Because deep down, you don't believe you belong. You don't believe you belong there in the first place.
Yep.
And you need to, when you show up, you need to believe, I belong right here. I've put in the work. I've put in the training. I've prepared. I deserve, I belong to be on this starting line, and I'm going to deserve the finish when it comes. And that's the only outcome that I'm willing to accept.
Yep. And it's all about, this is so important because it's all about the habits that you're creating in your life. And it's such a big part of events like this, challenges like this, that transfer into your real life. Because here's the thing, nobody cares if you quit.
Yeah.
No, because and most people are going to buy into your excuse. 99.9% of people around you are going to buy in to the reason that you tell them that's why you quit. Right?
Yep.
But there's the 0.1%. I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm part of the 0.1% that I see right through your bull crap. I'm talking about I see plumb through it, son. And when you go into something and you choose to take the out and you don't finish, you start to get used to how that feels.
Yep.
Oh, that wasn't that bad. Yeah, I didn't finish. Maybe it felt bad at the time or for a couple of days, but everybody forgot it. Everybody around me forgot about it. As a matter of fact, I'm even forgetting about it. And I'll give it another shot some other time. And you start to get used to that, man. You can't get used to that. Yeah. You can't get used to how that makes you feel, because you'll start to do that in every area of your life. I'm telling you, man.
That is so good and so true.
I wish people would understand this.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, all right. We're going to day 2. Leave the church and head up top of Trey Mountain.
So we pulled out day 2. Well, I think we got up about 5:30 or 6 that day. We after day 2 we started getting up and getting going early because we knew we had to cover more ground. But I think we pulled out about 7 o'clock. Does that seem right?
Something like that.
Day
Yeah.
2? Yeah.
Sun was up. Yeah.
Sun was up.
Morning, but sun was up.
Yep. And we were headed straight up Trey from there, pretty much, I think.
Trey Mountain was a long climb. Finally made it to the top. It was a hard climb. Gravel.
Yep.
It's a gravel climb. But coming off Trey Mountain is when crap got real, man. So coming off that mountain, talk about that, James. Hickory nut.
So there's a section coming off the backside of Trey, right before it. So the way the course is laid out, go up Trey Mountain, come down the backside, and then you come out into like Unicoi State Park and then down into Helen. Well, that stretch out the back end of Trey Mountain is called Hickory Nut. And Hickory Nut is this incredibly steep section. Literally, it's like I don't even know that it's a fire road as much as it was a fire break or something, with just big, like, I don't know like bigger than basketball size boulders, just thick, strewn all down the mountain. It literally looked like somebody had taken and moved some of these big rocks right in the middle of the trail. I
remember thinking that too.
I can't believe that they did, but that's literally what it looked like. And it is just steep and relentlessly just rocky down the side of this mountain. And if you come off your bike, you're going to go over the handlebars and you're going to smash your face into one of these big rocks.
It's freaking dangerous.
There's just no other way around it. I mean, you're going to get hurt if you come off.
And it's long.
Yes.
I mean, it's hours
of just slowly, just boom, just pounding down this thing. Because you can't, you think it's downhill. Oh, you're just bombing downhill and it's rocky. No. There's no bombing this. You're on your brakes. I mean, I remember my forearms getting tired from just holding those brakes, because you're just holding back everything you can to slowly, methodically make your way down that mountain.
I remember thinking, how are the bikes going to survive this?
Yeah.
That's how rough it was. And your bike took some pretty big damage.
Yeah, I bent my rear disc coming down the Hickory Nut there. It must have slammed against a rock or something, put a good dent in my rear disc, put a big dent in my rear wheel, bent my rear wheel, to the point that by the time we got to the bottom, that thing looked like a potato chip. It
was limping, son.
Yep. Scrubbing against the brakes, and it was in bad shape.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my first exposure to, really technical downhill mountain bike riding. And I don't think anybody else rides down that.
Yeah.
I think Justin actually told me there's a much easier route off of Trey Mountain into Helen, like a really nice route. And basically TNGA and the old bear hunters that are walking their dogs, through the woods trying to strike up a bear, that we're the only people who use that route.
I believe it, because I can't imagine what else it would be useful for.
It was god awful, son. So that was super intense. And by the time we dropped down into Helen, I'm actually nearly out of food.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking in day one, looking at the cue sheet, I was thinking these places were on course and we'd passed a couple resupply points. I'm nearly out of food. So we made a decision, okay, we're going to spend some time in Helen to get a good meal in us, because our breakfast that morning, James, you ate a bagel with
peanut butter and some M&Ms.
And M&Ms sprinkled on top. What was I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast.
I don't either.
It was something absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Probably a gel or something like that.
I think it was like a gel and some crackers or
something.
Or honey and crackers maybe?
It might have been, yeah. And so we said, okay, we're going to get a good meal in our belly here in Helen. So we ate at Cowboys and Angels, a little burger joint there in Helen.
It was good too.
Had an awesome waitress, good food. We got slap full of food, and then hit the grocery store. I overdid it a little in the grocery store. I don't like being out there and thinking I'm going to run out of food. So I said, I'm not going to let this happen again, man.
Chad comes out of the grocery store with 4 or 5 bags. Now, mind you, we're on the bike. We got these little packs. He's already packed heavy and full. Like, it looks like all the bags are full. And he comes out 4 or 5 bags worth of groceries. And I'm like, man, where are you going to put all that? He's like, I'll find a spot. He's shoving bananas in his... wherever he can find a spot, there's food. He got apple fritters and all sorts of stuff. That was pretty funny.
Hey man, if you run out of food out there, you ain't going nowhere.
That's for sure.
And so I did not like that feeling of like, okay, I'm running really low on food here. Like I got a couple gels left to get me down into Helen.
Yeah.
And we spent some time there, and that was good because I got plussed up on food enough that I never had. Matter of fact, I still had them apple fritters with me when I unpacked my bike after the race was over. So I got to hit the head real quick. Yeah. We'll pick up on this. All right, we're back. I just released a YouTube video today that's titled "Why the Great Government Taxes You to Death." Check and see how that.
Man, you are itching to get demonetized.
I can't believe the government just approved me for a suppressor. Really? I went and got my suppressor yesterday, so
all right.
They're obviously not watching my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Anyways, we leave out of Helen. Now, this is what you said was one of the hardest or the hardest climb for you, right? Going up to Hog Pen.
Yeah.
So there's a road.
I feel like this next section was the low point for me for the whole race.
Well, talk me through it, or talk the listeners through it.
We came out of Helen, and I was hoping to be able to get, there used to be a little bike shop in Helen, so I was hoping to get my disc fixed and my wheel trued in Helen, and I couldn't. There was no bike shop there anymore. So already a little deflated, just heading out of there knowing that I'm going to have to ride the next 100 and some odd miles with my bike like it is. And then we had a big lunch. I mean, felt good, ate, got our calories all in us. And immediately out of Helen, we hit, it's Hog Pen, right? I think it's the first one.
Hog Pen.
And Hog Pen is just a long, brutal road climb.
In the heat of the day.
In the heat of the day. It's like I think it was 3:00 in the afternoon by the time we pulled out of Helen, something like that. So it's right in the heat of the day. It was hot. It was long. We happened to be pedaling up there at the same time as some South Atlanta Dodge Charger club decided that they were going to race up and down the mountain with their GoPros hanging out the window and squealing tires, and that just pissed me off royally, anyways, because you're riding. I mean, it's steep, windy hill, climb, and there is no shoulder to the road. The road's not wide enough for a shoulder, so you're right on the white line, and you got these guys just flying past you, throwing donuts in the road, coming back. Anyway,
loud as crap.
And I was just struggling on that climb for whatever reason. And mentally, I started to lose focus, started to get impatient with it. And what we didn't talk about is that on the morning of day 2, it would have been this morning. That morning, Chad and I were going to switch, and I was going to navigate day 2, and he was going to not navigate, so that we could save battery power on his GPS. We would use mine. I
also wanted to relieve myself of a little mental strain.
Yeah, because
you screwed me.
He's carrying all the weight, right? And so I'm just kind of a tick at this point, just hanging on to Chad's rear tire. But I said, yeah, man, I'll love to navigate. And I go down to reach down literally to turn on my unit, and it was gone. It had fallen off somewhere, probably on Hickory Nut. I'm not sure where, but probably coming down Hickory Nut. It had fallen off. And so, no, it would have been Hickory Nut, because anyways, it was gone. And so I didn't have my GPS unit on this long climb. I have no idea like how far we are into the climb, how much longer it is. And I just started feeling just like depleted, and we finally got up to the top of the climb, come back down the other side, down into Vogel State Park. We pulled into Vogel, and man, I was tired. I didn't feel good. I had not fueled well. I think I thought in my mind that we ate so much food in Helen that I could just, like, I would be fine on this climb. I didn't need to worry about food and hydration as much because we just topped everything up. And I think in hindsight, what I realized is we were so calorie deficient going into Helen after our Pop-Tart and bagel dinner the night before, and, long hours in the saddle. All that did is bring us back to neutral.
Yeah.
And then we did this big climb, and I didn't eat well, didn't drink well. And when we got down into Vogel, I just felt like I just wanted to go to sleep. But we got down there, and I got a Coke and I forget something else to eat, and slowly started feeling a bit better. Coming right out of Vogel. So literally you come back down, you come down the backside of Hog Pen, come out of Vogel, and you're going right back up Wolf Pen.
Yep.
Which is not quite as bad of a climb, but just marginally easier. And so those two climbs, to me, that was, they weren't, terrain-wise, they were on the road. They weren't a bad terrain climbs. They were just long, sustained efforts right in the heat of the day.
Yeah, and to give you some context on that climb out of Helen up to Hog Pen Gap, that climb I'm going to say is about 6 miles.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it's about 6 miles, and we're on 12-speed mountain bikes, and that's in the lowest granny gear that you can get that thing in. That's pretty much the only way the grade is steep enough that's the only way you're moving forward is in that lowest granny gear. And yeah, I think it was a combination of what you said, eating and drinking, but also the heat of the day, the asphalt.
Yeah.
Riding on the road can be mentally taxing too, when you have cars flying up behind you and you're just sitting there like, okay, well, if I get hit,
Yep.
I get it, man. Like, it's hard to release the tension around that.
You have no idea what's coming because they're coming from behind, right? So you don't know. Like, it could any minute it's just get whacked.
And these kids going like crazy, and these Dodge Chargers, like James said, coming out of Vogel, that's when Abe passed us.
Yep.
So again, we started not quite an entire day earlier, but dang near a day earlier. And here comes the first place rider that started on Saturday
Saturday
at
morning.
8 o'clock or something. We started Friday at 11 o'clock. Give you some context to how fast this guy's riding. He passes us at about 120 miles.
Yep.
So that's how much faster he was riding than we were.
That blew my mind.
It did me too.
I thought we would see the race leaders sometime Sunday, probably Sunday afternoon. And the fact that Saturday afternoon, this joker comes flying by us just blew my mind. I mean, I was shocked that he made up that much ground on us that quick.
Change your perspective on
what's possible
on the bicycle, that's for sure. And we make that climb through Vogel. Easy day. We end up getting to the Cooper Creek store, which was a dang oasis, son.
Oh, that was my favorite stop. I needed that Cooper Creek store.
That was a dang oasis. It's this little store in Suchess, Georgia, that they decide to stay open 24/7 while the race is going on. They got a little kitchen in there. The people are very accommodating. They allow you to just sleep in the store. They've got really good food. I mean, that's like 10 out of 10 gas station food.
Yep.
It was excellent. And they have all the snacks and everything that you need there. They got a little pole barn out back that they're like, yeah, make yourself at home. Treat this place like it's yours. Let me start you a tab. Let me know what you want. And the problem with Cooper Creek store is we pulled in there about 9 o'clock p.m. And so it had just gotten dark. We'd been on the road for a long time. Yeah, the climbs were hard, but we had some downhill coming in there. We were kind of recovered. It's still early. And there was some tension around what we were going to do there because there was something in me that was like, it's too early. It's too early to stop. I mean, you got to figure we started the morning at mile 78 and we're finishing the day at mile 135.
Yeah.
So we've barely covered any ground.
Yep.
I mean, you're still at 135, and this race is 370 miles long. And this is the end of day 2.
Yep.
135 miles. I had this tension like, no, man, like, yeah, this is the oasis, but we can't stay here. We got to keep going. We got to get some more miles under our belt. And we talked about it. I mean, how do you remember that?
I remember it that they had quilts.
Yeah, and we had gotten really cold the night
before. It was, I think we got in there at 9. We decided to eat there. They had lasagna and some food, which was really good. I just remember you wanted to push on at least another 10 to 20 miles to a campsite. I was ready to bed down there for the night, mainly because the terrain early the next day looked pretty easy. So I felt like we're going to be able to cover that terrain pretty quick either way. 2, I felt like I needed a good night's sleep, and I would get one there, and it would be warm with the quilts that they had. And then 3, as we got to looking at the mileage, I knew I needed to make a significant stop in Mulberry for my bike.
Yeah.
At Mulberry Gap, which we'll get to in a minute, but they had a little bike repair set up there. And so I knew either way we needed to make a significant stop at Mulberry. and that we were going to hit Mulberry the next day either way.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we could either do a shorter day that day or a shorter day. Either way, it was going to be, there's going to be a short day in there if we were going to spend any time at Mulberry at all.
Yeah, and it ended up being the right call to stay at Cooper Creek store. One, because I don't think their food and stuff was way better.
Yes.
Than Mulberry.
Yeah. And we had the breakfast burritos that next morning.
Yeah,
that were really good.
Their food was off the chain, dude. Yep. So that ended up being the right call. We stayed there, got some good solid rest, refueled, got the tanks back to full, and got up the next morning and took off. Now, we rode from Cooper Creek store all the way to Mulberry Gap, and I remember thinking, man, that's a haul.
Yeah.
That was a haul. That was from mile 135 to mile 218. But in between there was a little section called Stanley Gap. Stanley Gap is where the bike pushing started for the first time. So up to this point, we've been able to ride our bikes the whole time. There was no pushing the bike. But we get to going up Stanley Gap, and that was when it began.
Stanley Gap is it's right outside of Blue Ridge, Georgia, and it's just a long, steep climb. And it's
rocky
and rooty and rutted out, and it's so long and so the pitch of it is so steep, you just can't ride it. I mean, maybe there's a few sections if your bike wasn't loaded down with gear, you could hammer through, but nobody with their bike geared out, packed out, is riding that thing.
Yep. Yeah, that was our introduction to what it was going to be like to push these heavy dang bikes. And speaking of heavy bike, I believe there's two options to riding this race. You either ride with your bike similar to Abe's bike, where it's just bare bones, hydration, nutrition. That's all you got. Maybe a little small repair kit, but even that needs to be very minimal.
Yep.
No sleep system, no extra layers, no puff jacket, no none of this crap, man. Or you ride like we rode, and you have everything, and you're able to basically be self-contained.
Yep.
You don't need a store to stop. You don't need a shelter. You've got shelter with you. But you're just going to be so much slower.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't realize how much having a heavy bike was going to slow me down.
Yep.
I'm a strong dude. I mean, I have strong legs. I'm fit. I thought I can handle a heavy bike, but no, it definitely slowed us down.
Yep. Especially when you start those long climbs, steep climbs, or you start having to push it or carry it. It's like, oh.
Yeah. That's when I really noticed it for sure, is when I was pushing it. Went by the Mountainside Market that evening at mile 184.
That was a great little stop.
Yeah, up and over Stanley Gap, Mountainside Market. Got a good sandwich there, so that was basically sufficed for a dinner.
Yep.
Couple big climbs up out of there, a couple steep climbs up out of there, and then finally we get to these dang single track trails that lead down into this place called Mulberry Gap. It's a mountain biking park, I guess.
Resort.
Resort kind of thing. But this was the first time I had ever been on true downhill mountain biking trails.
Really good, well-groomed, well-maintained, fast trails.
Yeah. And I remember, because you can go, now on those trails, it's different than Hickory Nut.
Yep.
You can go down those trails as fast as your mind will process what's in front of you.
Yep.
And as fast as your skills will allow you to go. And I remember going down those trails, and it was nerve-wracking to me, dude, because I'm thinking, man, and these trails are super narrow. Whereas Hickory Nut, you could drive an ATV
Yeah.
down Hickory Nut. But these were single track mountain bike trails. And I'm just thinking, I'm not interested in getting wrapped around a tree here. And there were a couple of times where, like, I would make a wrong move, like hit a rock wrong or something, and I realized I would correct and get back on course. But I realized 2 consecutive wrong moves,
You're off.
you're gone.
Yep. There's just no real margin for error.
No,
Yeah.
like if you hit a rock wrong and then before you can correct, there's another one, you are into a tree from 30 miles an hour to dead stop. And that's breaking something, man.
Yep. That's a bad day.
Yeah. So you are way better on that stuff than I was. I mean, you were much better descending on those trails, much more comfortable, much faster. I kind of hung back and was just getting a feel for those things because I had never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, and that's more of what I'm used to riding, is that well-groomed, well-maintained single track.
Yeah.
My problem is I get a little overconfident on it.
Yeah.
And I wrecked. I wrecked coming down off of there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was dark. I was trying to use a headlamp on my helmet and it kept slipping off, and I was going faster than I needed to go, and took one hard fall that stung, and then got back up, and I probably didn't ride another 10 minutes. Remember that one where my bike hit the tree, and somehow I had the wherewithal to kind of shove myself off and go around it. But yeah, I had two little crashes there within probably 15 minutes of each other, right before we popped out at Mulberry.
Yep. Yeah, we pop out to a fire road finally. Remember how ready we were to get off of that single track?
Yep.
Because it's dark. Yeah, and it's just so mentally taxing. We were so ready to get off of that stuff. I mean, in the daytime and fresh, it'd be an amazing place to go ride your bike.
Yep.
But we had enough of that crap.
Yep.
We popped out on this fire road. Here comes these 2 cats in a Jeep. I'm assuming you were right. They're two old fat white guys driving the Jeep, and 2 guys in the back seat of the Jeep, and 2 bikes on the back of the Jeep. But the guys in the back seat, I think, were
quitters.
Were guys that had quit the race,
Yep.
and they were hauling them back to Mulberry Gap. Is right, like the midway point of the race. It's like the headquarters of the whole race. So if you quit, Mulberry Gap will send a shuttle out, volunteers, to come and pick you up and bring you back to Mulberry Gap, where I think most of the people competing in the race, that's where their vehicles are at.
Yeah.
So they said, yeah, man, it's only 1 mile from here and it's all downhill. No, that wasn't true.
That wasn't even a little bit true.
That wasn't true. It's amazing how you don't notice really slight grades, obviously, when you're driving in a vehicle. You don't notice them. You just kind of roll through them. But when you're on that bike, man, every little small, just 5% grade, you know it.
Yep.
You know you're on it. We roll into Mulberry, and it's another like oasis of resupply, hot food, have the bike mechanics there, which those guys were super good, accommodating. You could tell they really loved being there and being able to serve the riders. That was cool, man.
Yeah, I loved that's. I was so excited to get there for my bike, to get that rear wheel trued, see what they could do. I had kind of pushed my disc back and straightened it out a little bit, so it wasn't so bad. It wasn't rubbing every time the wheel turned. But man, those guys, the way they just he could have just spent 10 minutes truing my bike and bending on the disc a bit and then slapped it off and gone to the next one. But man, he washed my bike, cleaned out the rear cassette, all the goop and stuff that was in there, re-lubed everything, made sure everything was shifting well. I mean, basically gave it a full tune-up. and just did it.
Just did it, man.
Just did it.
That
no
was really cool.
expectation for anything. I thought that was just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when that guy got done with my bike, it was cleaner than it was when I started the race.
Yep.
That was legit, man.
That was a great stop.
Yep. So that was a long pull, and it definitely made sense to stay at Mulberry.
Yeah.
Late in the night, long pull. We were happy with the ground that we covered, I think, when we got to Mulberry. It was really no question of leaving there and pushing on or staying there.
Yep.
The lady, Jackie, working the counter, tried to sell me a spot on the couch. You bought into it. You bought into it. I said, Jackie, I don't need a couch, man. You care if I sleep on that back porch out there in my bivy sack? She wanted $10 for me to sleep on the couch.
She sold me on that couch.
She got you on that couch,
and
son.
Then I woke up about 2 a.m. and I walked over to her and I said, hey, you reckon I can move over to one of them cots over there? Couch was I'm about 6'3".
That was a short couch.
That couch was about a 5-foot couch.
Yep.
So it didn't.
Did you move to a cot?
No, somebody else had come in and snagged it up. So I ended up sleeping on that couch all night.
I slept good out there on the porch in my bivy sack, and we woke up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Same time we woke up at Cooper Creek, 5 a.m. So woke up at 5 a.m. at Mulberry Gap, and my alarm goes off, and I kind of unzip my bivy sack, and I look up, and there's a guy in the dark standing at the foot of my bivy sack working on some piece of gear or something on a picnic table there at the foot of my bivy sack. And I could just tell by his posture, I knew who it was. It was my buddy Kevin Bilvery from right here in Rome. And the dude's out of it. So he also started Grand Depart. So now he's caught up with us. He was kind of in the front of the pack there. Okay. I knew he would be. He's a really good mountain biker. But you have these weird moments during these events. And that was one of them for me. It's like waking up at 5 a.m., it's pitch dark, and here's this dark figure standing at the foot of the bivy sack, but you can tell by his posture and his height and just the way he's standing, you know who it is, and then you're like, hey, Bilbrey, and he's out of it, and oh, hey, man, what's going on? Like, there's just these weird freaking moments, man. I remember having, it always brings me back to going on deployments in the Navy. Like you had weird moments all the time, like walking into a hotel in some crap hole country in Africa and meeting Jesse Jackson, and like just these weird things. And that one kind of had the same feel to it. So talked to Kevin for a minute. We got us a little chow, a little coffee, and headed out, jumped back on that darn single track again.
Yep.
Right off the bat in the morning. But now this time it was uphill. Now we didn't have a specific goal when we left Mulberry Gap. Mm-hmm. Mulberry Gap's at mile 218. And so we're just going in. I mean, before sunup, we're getting back on the trail.
That's when you had your big wreck.
Oh, yeah, my big wreck. Yeah.
Well,
I stopped.
Old Chad was struggling coming out of Mulberry.
Tell you how skilled of a mountain biker I am. This single track trail we were on coming out of Mulberry is cut into the side of a steep mountainside, right? And it's just a little ledge that the trail's on. So I stopped my bike, and I'm going to get off my bike to do something, push it or something like that. And when I go to unclip my foot and step off the bike, I step down on the downhill side of the trail. Well, there's no ground there. It just goes down the freaking mountain. So there I go. I'd step down, I go down, my bike goes down. So it was a static crash. Yeah. Luckily. Yeah. It was a static crash. But once you get past Mulberry, there's really no clear place to stop, because you're leaving 184. Dalton is only 252.
Yeah.
So you want to go past Dalton. But once you get past Dalton, there's nothing.
There's nothing.
There's absolutely nothing. So Dalton's too early. But going through Dalton, we did get us some more chow that timed out about perfect.
Yeah.
What was that place called?
Willie's
world famous hamburgers. World famous, son.
Yep.
That Joker's was big, nasty. Now, I'm going to tell you, though, for what we were doing,
it was just right.
I mean, I hit that daggone patty melt, and I don't think I had to eat anything for 5 hours after I ate that thing.
That was the most dense burger I've ever had in my life. And the fries, I mean, it was a mound. It was 2 pounds of fries in that bag. There had to have been.
Yep. We come out of Dalton, and now we're getting on my home turf. Like, as soon as we leave Dalton, any of you guys who have ran the Georgia Jewel race or any of that, for me, it's my backyard. These are my home trails. So now I'm in terrain that I know, and actually for me, that made things easier. That's strange. I think it could affect people in maybe different ways, but when we climbed up out of Dalton and got on the Pinhoti up there on Snake Creek or Snake Creek Gap, I guess the approach trail, going across the ridge, the fact that I knew where I was and I had been on those trails multiple times, I think it relieved me of some mental burden. Like, I know where I'm at. I know where to go. I don't need to watch the GPS. Yeah. I'm good to go, you know? But that whole day was Bicycle Appreciation Day. We told you the bike hiking started at Stanley Gap, but that was a fairly short section, and there was a lot of riding after that.
Yep.
Well, once we got out of Dalton, there was probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 hours of just predominantly pushing your bike.
Yep.
So that's where I learned what it was like to have an 80-pound bicycle and not be able to ride it. And when we finally got to the first section where we were able to ride, I appreciated being able to ride the bike instead of pushing it for the first time.
Yep. You would think after riding for however many days, you'd be ready for a break. But man, you push that bike for a couple hours and you desperately want to ride it again.
Yeah.
And we pushed it. It was just hour after hour. It's just saddle to summit, rock garden, steep uphill, steep downhill, just blowdowns, like whatever. There were just a large chunks that were just unrideable that we're just pushing.
Another thing you got to think about on that too, some of that terrain through those rock gardens, at the skill level you are, James, on the mountain bike, like some of that, you probably could have rode some of that you pushed, but you're thinking, you have to weigh the cost of like, okay, I'm in big bouldering rock right here. Could I balance my bike and move across this? Maybe so, but I am very likely to damage the bike on this rock. And again, if you damage the bike and it's unrideable, well, you're walking the rest. There's no bike shops anywhere. Like from that point, from Snake, you're walking the rest of the way.
Yep.
And that would end up being a 100-mile walk. So you're having to weigh the cost of this terrain is potentially rideable, but it's super rocky. I'm not going to risk, bending my derailleur or bending a wheel or breaking something just so that I can ride a little bit faster across this than I can push my bike. So that's again, you're having to calculate these things and make good decisions based off of that element of the race.
Yep.
And we did good. We came through there with zero issues. Finally made it down to Dry Creek where we filtered water. you remember that thing that was making that noise or up the creek? When I was like, I sure would like to know what the crap that noise was coming up the creek, man.
Yep.
That's a strange place to me. Those woods have an odd feel about them. They don't have a welcoming feel about them. I don't know what it is, but that dang thing up there making that noise didn't help it at all. But every time I've been to that spot, there's some sort of something there that I don't like.
Yeah, and even that creek is just weird. I don't know what it is about it. It's not a beautiful mountain creek. It's the water kind of murky, and it just doesn't feel like it belongs there. I don't know.
I agree. I can't put my finger on it.
Man, we forgot to talk about your bear.
Oh yeah, I did. Oh, I talked about that last week.
Oh, did you? Okay.
But yeah, I almost hit a bear coming down in the Mulberry Gap, sitting in the dang trail. There's so much stuff that happened. Filter water at Dry Creek. We push on. We know there's nothing until we get to the daggone finish. So it's getting late into the night at this point. And I think there was a point that I told you, I think if we can push on till, 2 or 3 in the morning before we bed down, it's going to set us up for a good, a manageable distance to the finish line the next day. Yeah. Well, we're pushing. About 2:00 rolls around. I keep telling James, I had this campsite in mind. And I keep telling James, well, yeah, we're getting close, man. We're getting close. Well, there was this climb that gains a ridge called Taylor's Ridge that I had forgotten about. That was between where we were and this campsite I had in mind. So it's a big climb, and then it's a long section across the ridge. And for some reason, my mind had just blanked out. I thought we were closer than we were. And James, we get to the base of that. Maybe we got to the top of. Well, we're going up that climb, and you're like, "What the crap is this, Chad?" And I'm like, "Oh, I forgot about this one." And I think we get to the top, and you're like, "Chad, seriously, man, where's this campsite?" And I'm like, "It's not much further."
Every time I'd ask, it'd be like, it's not too far. It's not too far. You eating? You drinking? Make sure you're eating, drinking. Nothing changes. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, there's no stinking campsite. This joker is going to lead me. He's going to lead me along as he can, believing there's a campsite just to see how far we can push. That's a Chad mind game right there. And so I just decided right there, I was like, that's fine. I'm in it. As long as he wants to go. I'm just going to keep pedaling.
So just to let you know, I never did have it in my mind to push on to the finish. I knew we were going to need to stop and get some rest. And I did have that campsite in mind. I was just blanking out about a couple little small terrain features that were between us in that spot. But we're coming down Taylor's Ridge, and that was a really cool section, man. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I had just been on the bike for so long and I was getting really comfortable on the bike, but it was late at night. But I just got into this mode where everything just all of a sudden felt effortless coming down through there. Like I wasn't even having to think about it. I was just flowing down through there. That was probably my favorite section of the whole race for me.
That was usually the way the route would go, or the way Chad and I would ride, is we were going uphill. He'd usually lead the way because he'd be a little faster on the uphills than I would. And then we got to the summit, we'd refuel, take a drink of water, and then we're going downhill. Especially if it was technical, I'd go ahead because I'd be a little faster on the downhill. That night, I just said, you know what, Chad, you go first because I don't want to. I'm tired. I'm getting wonky. I don't trust myself to hold back downhill. I'll end up wrecking and hurting myself, and we're too close to risk it. And so I rode behind you on that downhill, and that's the time where I'm like, all right, old Chad's a mountain biker now.
Yeah, that was the first time.
We're cruising down that stretch. I mean, I was giving it all I wanted to give it, and I was barely hanging with you. Like you were just cruising, and it was unexpectedly good trail. And the nature of the trail too was like, it was almost like this. I don't know I can't remember what it looks like during the day. I know we did it during the ROP course, but actually went through there at night during the ROP course too, I think. But with the headlamp with the lights on, it almost looks like it's like a white pulverized rock or something. And so you can actually really see the trail well. And I agree. That was probably the funnest part of the whole, in terms of riding, for me, was down there. It was just fun.
Yeah, it was perfect. It wasn't so intense as those Mulberry Gap
coming down the bear.
It was just right to where you could just kind of let go. And that was the first time in the whole race that I actually felt like a mountain biker. I feel like my skills on the bike got better throughout this ride by necessity.
Yeah.
Like I probably skipped like a whole year's worth of learning to ride the bike, and just kind of by necessity got to that level of skill within a few days because of the terrain we were crossing. Roll down into the campsite, which is a really cool spot. And what made that spot cool, and the reason I really wanted to get to that particular spot, one, because there's water, and there's not much water through there. So I knew there was water there, but two, because it was 2 or 3 years ago, I went to that spot and did I just did like a 24-hour fast down there at that spot on that creek. I just sat there, didn't bring anything with me other than my shelter. And I sat down there and just kind of fasted and prayed for a whole 24 hours time span and hiked out. While I was doing that a few years ago, though, that's the first time I ever saw 2 TNGA riders came through there while I was camping there. I had no clue that TNGA was even a race. Had no clue people bike packed. And I saw these guys coming down on these bikes loaded out. And man, they looked beat. I mean, they looked beat down. And I remember thinking, like, what are these cats doing? What is on their bikes? Like, their bikes are loaded down with gear and stuff. And that was my first exposure ever to the race. And at the time, I didn't even know it was a race. And so then to come full circle and be back in that same spot, actually doing the race, that was really cool for me. Got a couple hours of sleep there.
Yeah, that day, well, I guess what was that, day 4 then? Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
That was a big day. I mean, I think we started riding from Mulberry about 6 or 6:30 a.m. I mean, we still had lights on, and then we rode till at least 3 a.m. So
that was our biggest day.
That was our biggest day. We covered a lot of miles over hard terrain, a lot of hours. We managed our stops in Dalton, I felt like, pretty well. Like, we had lunch there, but we didn't hang out for hours. We just grabbed lunch, went to the grocery store, grabbed what we needed, and we're back on the trail.
Yep. Yeah, we covered 95, 96 miles that day, I think. And before we move on to the last day, I do remember having a moment at that little grocery store we stopped at in Dalton. I have these moments every time I go out and do stuff like this where you're getting toward the end. And I always have these moments where I'm like, I was sitting out in front of this grocery store in Dalton and thinking, you know, I'm now, by this point, I am in it. Like, I'm in the mode. And I just remember thinking, man, this is going to be over soon. And it always makes me a little bit sad. You know, that was that moment for me. It's like, man, here in a day or two, this is over.
Yeah.
And here I'm in this, I call it like full savage mode, dude. You're just living.
Yep.
I mean, you're just living, dude.
You're not worried about how you look, how you smell.
Nothing.
Nothing. It's just, you're just all about the mission.
Yep. And I always get a little sad when I realize it's going to be over soon. And we head out the next morning. Still got a lot of hard trail across Taylor's Ridge. Drop off a high tower. And that was the last climb and descent.
Yep.
Coming down off a high tower. Bunch of rail trail down along Highway 100. Crappy trail.
Overgrown.
And it's literally 20 yards from the road.
You can see the road the whole time. You look over to your left, there's a nice paved road, and we're just on this horrible overgrown briars flapping you in the face and across your arms, ruts. Oh, maybe it's just because you're so close to the end too, but that's my least favorite section.
I've heard a lot of people say that's their least favorite section.
It feels like it goes on forever. There's nothing to look at.
Dogs chasing you.
Yeah, no redeeming value to it.
Freaking rednecks, freaking third world shanties everywhere. Yeah, I think Chattooga County is, one of, if not the poorest county.
Really?
In the whole state. But yeah, it fits the character of the race.
Yep.
There's a beautiful paved road right there, 20 yards to your left, that you could be riding 15, 20 miles per hour on.
Yep.
But you're stuck on this rail trail at 5-6 miles per hour, just getting chased by dogs and going through ruts and mud and briars and everything else. It just fits the character of the race.
Yep.
Get out of that long highway section after that, through Coosa, come into Cave Springs. We didn't even think about stopping in Cave Springs. Cool little town.
It is. We were within 15 miles, 16 miles of the finish at that point. It's like, let's roll on through.
Yep. Roll on through Cave Springs. A little more single track coming out of Cave Springs.
That was nice single track, though.
Yeah, it was
pumpy. I mean, there was
I didn't want to be on it, if I'm honest with you.
There's a bunch of little short climbs and stuff, but it was well maintained at least. We weren't having to push our bikes or.
Yep. And take it on in, jump on the Silver Comet Trail, and take it on across the finish. Now, at the finish line, there were big crowds of people,
bands, music playing,
confetti.
Press was there to do, get our interviews, everything. It
was big, man. No, really, we crossed the finish line, and there were 3 people there, but the 3 right people.
Yeah.
And that's what matters, man. It's probably if I could pin down if I could pin down my favorite aspect of these bike packing races, it's the grassroots nature of them. It is my absolute favorite aspect of it. We didn't tell you guys, this race, you know how much it costs to enter this race? $0. You know how you enter? You send a random email that you have to even figure out how to send it.
Find the address.
Yeah. And you send a random email saying, hey, I'm going to do the race. And then you wait for months. And finally, somebody sends you the GPX file. And you have to talk to people to even figure out when and where it starts. And then you get to the end, and there's nobody there.
There's no medal.
Nothing.
There's no picture, no photographer there. I mean, thankfully Brooke was there, but
there's nobody. There doesn't need to be anybody there nobody needs to be there to record your time because they just look at the tracker.
When did it stop moving?
Yeah, when did the tracker stop moving at the finish line point? But we had 3 right people there, Brooke, Jennifer, and Justin Sheely. And Justin's the whole reason I even do any of these bike packing things. He's been the one who got me into it. And talking about the grassroots nature of this stuff, you have to know somebody that's into this stuff and has been into this stuff to really even understand how it works or how to do it.
Even from a gear perspective, I've been mountain biking my whole life. I would have no idea and it's not easy to find, what type of gear, bike packs you need for a race like this, how they attach, like what you want to stay like. It's such a niche sport that unless you know someone, and that's where like Justin was just such a generous dude, such a lifesaver when it comes to something like this, because he just he just sent me a list. Here, go buy this.
Yep.
I'll help you put it on. I'll help you fit your bike. I'll help you do whatever. And he did, man. And then for him to be there at the finish was really, really great.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the gear and stuff now, even now, because this is such a small kind of, I don't know what you call it, but like a small little niche type of, it's like ultra running was, I would say, in probably the, I don't know, 90s, early 2000s. That's what this is like now. And all the gear and stuff is handmade.
Yeah.
This is all, I mean, there are people out there who have companies, but they're hand making the gear themselves.
Yeah. If you were to decide today, I'm going to go do TNGA next week, I'll just go order a bunch of gear. Good luck with that.
You ain't going on Amazon.
It's going to take you 6 weeks to get anything in the mail.
Yep.
Because it's got to be made.
Yep. So, how'd it feel to finish?
It felt good. You know, it's that tension. We talked about it even while we were sitting there at the race. It's like, I'm glad to be done. I feel like we really accomplished something. Like that was a push. That was tough. It was everything. It was as tough as I thought it would be. Maybe even at some points a little more. And, but it felt like a legitimate accomplishment. Mm-hmm. And to your point too, I even liked the nature of like, you finish and then you and I and Brooke and Justin and Jennifer just sit down at the picnic table and have a cold drink and just share stories for an hour. And then we pedal back out of there to the truck and go home.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a hard shift, man.
Yep.
It is a hard shift. Well, when I finished, of course, as usual, I didn't want it to be over. I could have just kept riding. But I really didn't comprehend how much of a whooping that put on me until later that evening. Because we finished pretty early.
Yeah.
And we went back home. And I even called you.
Yeah.
Because a couple hours after being home, I freaking crashed, dude. Like I could barely think, keep my eyes open. My body was sore. I was like, what the crap's going on? I didn't feel any of this, you know, while we were riding across the finish line just a few hours ago. But there's something that flips off in my brain. And when it does flip off, I just crashed hard, dude. And I remember calling you and be like, hey, dude.
You all right?
Yeah. How are you doing? Because I just crashed hard, man. It's funny how powerful the mind is, because I remember 2 years ago when we did the paddle trip down the Altamaha. There's this, somehow when at least me personally, when I'm engaged in these things like this bike race or the paddle mission or whatever, and during the paddle mission, I had gotten coronavirus. Everybody on the team got coronavirus during the paddle mission. It didn't hit me, and it hit me literally. It manifested its symptoms the moment we were finished. It's like your body, your mind can actually somehow even stave off sickness until it flips this switch and you tell it you're done. And then you start to feel everything. It's crazy how powerful the mind is, man. So I didn't realize how wrecked I actually was until, a few hours after. And then these last few days for me, like we had Team PT Wednesday morning. So we finished Tuesday. Wednesday morning, Blake and Chili show up for Team PT, and it's a 5-mile run. And I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to go out and run with them. Dude, I got out and I ran like not even a mile And I was like, I can't run. I'm not, this isn't good.
I'm out.
This isn't good for me. And I just walked home. So it really did take a toll on me physically.
Yeah.
Which is surprising. Which surprised me anyways. Because I didn't feel that way
During the ride.
Yeah. I felt like I could just keep going. But it did. It took a toll on me.
Yeah, I had just a couple little nagging things during the ride. The one that my Achilles just got lit up and was hurting, and a little spot on the back of my thigh. But like you, like the Achilles thing was a pain. It hurt, but it wasn't like I wasn't disabled. I could still do whatever I needed to do. I still never a concern of like, oh, can I keep going?
Yeah.
But man, like Wednesday morning, Thursday, today, it's like foot's all swollen up, Achilles lit up, hobbling around. But that thing was hurting. Started hurting day 2 in the race.
Yeah.
It didn't do any of that while we were out there.
It's really weird.
It's like as soon as I stop and as soon as the that regular flow of pushing yourself stops, like body just starts reacting.
Yeah, I don't understand how the brain's powerful enough to keep things like that at bay, like inflammation, pain, even sickness. The one weird thing that happens to me when I'm out doing this, I told you about it, is like when we bedded down at Cooper Creek store and we said, okay, we're going to wake up at 5 a.m. Well, I set an alarm, but I go to bed and I wake up at 4:58. Just automatically, I come awake. It's like I don't even understand that, how my mind is somehow synced up with minutes and times, and it will wake me up 2 minutes before my alarm goes off from a dead sleep. But that only happens when I'm in that mode that I'm talking about being in. So it's pretty cool. Definitely the mind is way more powerful than we can even comprehend when we see it manifesting these things. When we're out here all keyed up and we're so honed in and so focused on a goal, and it's able to work these kind of strange things and stave off all these feelings and fatigue and the whole 9 yards. And then as soon as you turn it off, it all hits you. So it was a good ride, man. You going to do another one?
I don't know. I mean, I'm still in for Hurricane.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that one. Yeah, I'll do. I don't know. I'll do another TNGA, or at least not next year. I mean, I may, but I'm not committing to any of that right now.
Well, I can tell you, Hurricane's a whole different experience. So Hurricane is another bikepacking race down in Florida, put on by a guy named Carlos. He's a master route builder. That's what he does for a living. He links up all these mountain bike routes, but he actually creates routes to be enjoyable. Like, he wants you to have a good time. Yeah. Like there's a brewery on the route. Okay. Like, you're going through all these really pretty places and awesome mountain bike parks. I mean, it's Florida, he could find some nasty stuff if he wanted to, but yeah, it's a whole different experience. Although it is uniquely hard in its own respect. Instead of rocks and roots and hills, you got sand and palmetto roots and a lot of wet, trudging through knee-deep, waist-deep water at times. So it's got some hard sections in it, but it's got a lot of beauty to it too. So whole different experience. So I am looking forward to going and doing that again. And then for me, I think I like this stuff so much. I don't know that I'll ever go so hard into it that I like quit running and stuff, but I do like it so much that I think my ultimate goal with this would be to do the Tour Divide, which is from Banff, Canada to the Mexico-U.S. border. It traverses the entire Rocky Mountains. I think it's like 2,600 miles or something. So that's my ultimate goal, kind of what I want, what I would like all this to lead to. But there's plenty of things out there to do in the bike packing world. I know the Colorado Trail Race, that appeals to me.
That does me too.
Yeah.
I would definitely do that one.
That's a big one. So I'm going to keep spending money.
That's what it is.
Another big difference.
Beat yourself up and spend money to do it. That's bike packing in a summary.
Another big difference between bike packing and ultra running. A pair of shoes is $100. A new bike is $3,000. If you're going to get something that's halfway decent. If you want the best, go ahead and get ready to spend about 10 grand.
Yep. And then start adding on all the packs.
Yep.
And gears and racks and
so it is a lot more expensive for sure. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this after actions report on the TNGA. And again, if you've rode mountain bikes, on your local sidewalk and stuff like that, this is a good event for you. So go sign up for next year. We'll talk to you guys next time. We love you. Oh, James.
Yes.
I wanted you to put out what you're doing right now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm launching a new organization called Beyond. The website is beyondexperience.co. And we're targeting like 18 to 25-year-old young adults. And it's really all about creating experiences, content, mentoring to help young adults develop spiritually, to develop resilience, and to develop the professional skills that they need to be able to lead and yield influence out in their communities and their families and the marketplace as followers of Christ. So we do all sorts of awesome experiences, everything from, a backpacking trip to a sailing trip along the coast. And then there's mentoring and content, books, things that go along with it as well. So anybody listening that is in that age demographic or knows somebody they love in that age demographic, we'd love the opportunity to talk to them and serve them, get them involved.
That's awesome. I love that.
Thanks for asking.
It's an awesome mission. Yes, I almost forgot about it, but I definitely wanted that to be put out here. So y'all check that out, man. James is an amazing human and a awesome friend and mentor to me. So promise you, if you're going to do some work with him, you're not going to be disappointed. All right, now it's actually time to sign off. Love you guys. Nuff said.